Hey guys, we've got Andrew Houston and Jay Carter with us today from Profit for Contractors. And we're talking about the ways that contractors can improve their businesses by implementing systems and just by improving their business as opposed to improving their, construction techniques or trade skills. They're two totally different things, as you may well know. A lot of contractors are stressed out and have their voicemail on their phone full and just too many things going on. And these guys have built a business designed to help contractors who find themselves in that situation, among others. But we're also talking about finding employees and selling businesses, all these types of things. So I hope you enjoy it. These are great guys. They got a lot of experience. Let's get into it. First of all, thank you both for taking the time out of your day, joining us. And Andrew, I read your bio a little bit, and I know you've been in the trades, but I need you to spell out exactly what type of electrician you were, because industrial controls and automation, can you kind of spell out that little aspect of the trades first?
Yeah.
Because I've been around a little while, and like I said, that didn't register for me.
Yeah. So yeah, I think a good example of what would that look like back in the day. Like, what does an industrial controls licensed electrician actually do? Well, there's a lot that they do. I ended up specializing in building automation lines for breweries. So, I like to have the odd brew, and I was doing automation lines for all different types of applications. That could be potato packaging, that could be, in the automotive space. But so we would build automation lines. So all the electrical, all the electronics, all the sensors that goes with that, touch screens, so they could actually see, in the brewery, they could see what their capacity was. They could see how many bottles were going through. They could, just basically digitize their production in an automated way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so an automation line, is that, I'm picturing like a conveyor belt at a factory. Is that what you mean by automation line, more or
Yeah,
less?
absolutely, absolutely. So it'd be this big, stainless steel bottling plant, right, in the brewery, and basically what they would be doing is they'd be putting the beer in, putting the labels on. You would hear all this rattling going on of them packaging the beer bottles and what have you. And then there's the keg side of it, filling up the kegs and things of that nature. So basically, you'd walk in and see this big, conveyor belt along with all these different machines, and they would be, automatically, putting the beer in the bottles and getting it ready for guys like us to drink.
I've always wondered about factories, and there's a million examples. Breweries would be one, but are these facilities like, is everyone become its own monster? By the time all of their different tools and equipment is assembled and the electronics are assembled, is it its own factory, or do these things, are they basically the same? From the same equipment manufacturers in every
Yeah,
brewery?
so they're basically the same. It's just the scale of them, right? So you
Oh,
picture all these microbreweries that have come to life, right, in the last decade or two. Back in the day when I had my automation company, that things were just getting started, right? So you had the big suppliers like Molson's and companies like that. That it could be Carlsberg, all these different, Miller, people of that nature, and there wasn't any microbreweries. So what happened was, we had a lot of, smart entrepreneurs that wanted to go and make these customized
huh.
beers. And so these little microbreweries. So it was just a scaled down version of the big, big companies
Amazing.
out there.
That's amazing. Well, fill the listeners in. You have a bit. Yeah, you're an electrician doing this, and then you have a business doing this, and maybe kind of get us up to speed on how your career moved from
Yeah,
there
for
till
sure,
now.
for sure. So I had an industrial controls company doing these automation lines that I just described, and I was your contractor out there. I was really good at my trade. I thought I was pretty good at my trade. I could walk into a plant. Client would say, "I want X, Y, and Z," and no problem, I could put it together. Okay, we could. I had a whole team of electricians and helpers working for me under the name Houston Contracting, and but I struggled. I really, really struggled. And where I struggled wasn't on the knowledge of being a tradesperson. And Jay can attribute to this as well. I'll let Jay tell you a little bit about his business as well. A similar situation is the business was running me into the ground. I didn't know, how to structure the company. I didn't have any of that business experience. I had the trades experience, but I didn't have the business experience. And that was a big struggle on, making sure that people got paid, making sure that you're making money, making sure that, you're not in this chaotic state, that you're actually getting control of the business, making sure that the business is going in the right direction. It takes business insights, right? And as well, business insights specific to the trades. So long story short, I went through about a decade of hell. Okay. I'll be straight up with you, Nate, that, I was working 60, 70, 80 hours, 90 hours. Honestly, there's weeks that I put in 100 hours. And I thought that the more time that I put in, the better my business would be. But in reality, because I didn't have these business principles, I didn't have this blueprint, to actually build a true business in the trades, I was always a slave to my business. Right.
Mm.
And so I was fortunate enough. I had ended up marrying a chartered accountant. So on the financial side of things, she gave me a big eye opener that I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I was just pricing my jobs, with my gut, and I didn't even know how to read my financials and all the rest of that. And that gave me a big eye opener that I really needed to become a business owner versus just being a tradesperson. So that meant getting off the tools. That meant, creating structure. That meant, finding the right systems and the right process, putting the right policies in place so that this business could run without me. And skipping ahead, I got that business to run without me so well that I was, I had a lot of time on my hands. And my biggest competitor came knocking on my door and said, "I don't know how the hell you're able to double the production that they're able to with half the amount of people, but I want that business. I want what you've got." So I sold the business and cut to the chase. I had a bunch of buddies, tradies, hang with tradies. We go to the pubs together. We go for breakfast together. We play ball together, all the rest of that kind of stuff. And the guys were like, "What are you going to do?" And I'm like, I don't know. And they said, "Well, why don't you do the thing that you've helped us with?" So I was helping all my buddies with all these systems and processes and structure. And I helped their business to the point that they started getting freedom. And they said, "There's a big need for this." And I was like, "Is there?" And lo and behold, started Profit for Contractors, and helping contractors really become champion CEOs of their business. And Jay's like my right hand man. He's Jay still has a roofing company. You can tell us a little bit about that, Jay.
Yeah, Jay, let's hear your background, Jay.
Yeah, so sort of similar to Andrew's, maybe not as sophisticated, but same story. I struggled for well over a decade doing just about everything wrong. Going through the ups and downs of learning how to be a businessman. Literally ran it into the ground. Had to come back from that. That experience and really start to realize, that running a business meant a lot more than just putting on a tool belt and hustling. And to survive in business, you have to be able to rely on more than hustle, because everyone, at one point or another in their life can hustle, but you can only do it for so long. You can only get so far. I think, now I've got my business where it's completely systemized and operates without me. And kind of, I guess, the journey of going through all those experiences and, getting my business to where most contractors want to be. You start to discover some things, pretty quickly, especially as you start to move into the point where you're building managers and you're building sales staff, is that you become a coach. That's, at the end of the day, that's where your role changes. And I think a lot of what I'm able to offer, our client base is the fact I've lived through it. I hate to say it, but I got the trauma and the scars to prove it. I really did it the hard way. And, now looking back, I get to share that experience. And, and just like Andrew said, I want to occupy my time and have impact with people and, talk what I'm really interested in, but I'm, not necessarily needed or even wanted in my business anymore. So it's a great outlet now to share the experience and help others, get to where I've been able to get.
I just have this vision of contractors because of how I grew up, that a contractor is a guy who you shake hands with and his dashboard's covered with
Right.
papers and contracts, and he's like dirt under his fingernails, and he's honest and takes care of his clients. And that's how my dad is, and his business, he really loved the work so much. I don't think he ever could have lived without being hands on. But I guess the point is, even for people who might romanticize the trades, like, oh, I just want to be out in my office, out working, there definitely comes a point where it's not as fun anymore when you're
Right.
getting yelled at, or even just the work itself. Roofing it
Nasty.
doesn't take very long probably to get to that point. So I guess my
Right.
next question, I could see how some contractors and some trades, this may be easier to do than others. Some trades and build, some work is so custom and so unique that almost initially I imagine, I kind of think, and I know a lot of other contractors say, like, well, how could anybody else do this besides me? It's
Mm-hmm.
so every job is different. Is that a common, something you hear regularly? How do you address that,
So,
myth, or
so I
if it
mean,
is a myth?
yeah, if I'll answer this one. I think that, again, there is a very big difference, growing by the day in terms of the stereotype around what a contractor is and what they do. Um, when trying to differentiate yourself and trying to get your price and get paid what you deserve, I think now more so than ever, it's, you can be a completely niche market, and tackle the hardest jobs, and it'll pay well. In terms of, being the only one that can do that and the only one that's capable of doing that, that's an illusion. I mean, no matter which market you're in, here's somebody that's going to be bigger, better, and faster, and can do the job better. That's really not, again, an angle we want to go at. We want to kind of look at, all right, how do we get this business, and it is a business, to operate without us? How do we, maybe control those variables so we're not putting ourselves in that situation where we're the only ones that can do it? And if we are the only ones can do it, what's our plan to start bringing people in that can do it? Right. So again, we get back into, it's a mindset change that has to occur. And I mean, even if you're the hardest working, contractor out there, and you don't want the business side and all of that, I mean, I still feel, obligated at that point that you have to share that knowledge. You have to get someone involved that's going to take that knowledge forward. And I mean, that's,
Mm-hmm.
that's so important. And it's such a, I wish there was more of it. Maybe our trades wouldn't be in the state they're in now,
Yeah.
if, we really, took that and implemented it.
It's interesting, like, I'm totally in agreement with what Jay is saying. All that goes through my mind when you asked that question, Nate, was contractors need to understand that there's a couple of things to this point. A little sort of quote that comes out of my head, just the way that my brain thinks with analogies and things of that nature. I think about systemize the routine and humanize the exceptions. Okay. So say that again, systemize the routine, which, by the way, is 80 to 90% of your business.
Yeah.
And humanize the exceptions. So you're going to have, yes, there's going to be customized jobs. Okay. If you're in that kind of trade, right? If you're a craftsman, a carpenter, you're doing customized homes. The word customized home, says a lot, that each application is going to be subtly different. Some of the material is going to be different. Some of it's going to be very unique. But the systematic part of what we're talking about is almost like a recipe. I use, again, back to analogies. It's like a cake recipe, right? You got this amazing cake, and it could be the best bloody cake in the world. We all have the ability to make the best cake in the world. We just got to get the same ingredients, got to follow the recipe, not put the eggs in at the last. If it says put them in, the second step in the recipe, follow that recipe, and you're going to be able to systemize the hell out of your business, so that your business is going to be able to run without you. Okay. Because the more systematic that you can create your business, the more systematic your team's going to be, the more in control, the more consistent you're going to be. But yes, there's those exceptions, right? my last analogy is it's no different than a pilot, right? They all get into these planes. They've got their license. I don't care if it's a commercial or private or what have you. But there's going to come a point, hopefully not, but there will become points where they take it off. They have to take it off cruise control, right? But 90% of that journey, the plane has been on automatic pilot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that little piece of the 10% where there's maybe an emergency or something where they got to take it off autopilot, maybe to land the plane, or maybe there's different wind conditions. They've been trained, right? Which is still part of a system and a structure to deal with those exceptions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I would answer that question from the perspective of, yeah, you might be listening in on this podcast and you might be thinking, hey man, I'm unique. Yeah, you do have unique aspects of your business. But I'm going to tell you right now that 80-90% of your business is this, the same principles apply.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great. So you mentioned pilots and recipes. I know pilots have actual manuals like in their plane, then checklists that they're like looking at, and say with the recipe. So is this kind of, when you're saying systems, is this part of the process is kind of writing manuals and stuff, or to what extent does that happen? Because again, that's like sometimes with this type of conversation, it feels like even having the conversation and even like looking for new employees like takes away the time that otherwise you would be getting the work done. You know what I mean? It's almost like building systems is just adding one more thing to my to-do list. I'm thinking about this for our business, and it's more work to it feels like more work to build all this out that I don't have time for.
Right. So that is a mindset that we often come up against, and we have to look at it the other way. What's your end game? What's your contribution going to be? What's your impact going to be? Do you want your business to just fizzle out when you go away, or do you want it to continue on? Do you want it to give you a lifestyle that you deserve for all the work? Because I'll be honest with you, a little bit more work in building a system or a process, and that could be checklists, that can be, listen, it could be very simple things, okay? But it's about getting it out of your head and being able to teach it to somebody else, okay? So if that doesn't require time, yeah, I mean, there's an initial investment to it, but the payback's 10x, right? And at a certain point, if you get into that mindset of like, hey, I'm going to take what I'm doing and I'm doing as a routine, and I'm going to break it down in a simple way that somebody else could easily come by and do the same thing I'm doing. So I'm not the only one, right? And in a business, that's the simplest way. And in the trades especially, and we don't have enough of this, like even though they go to trade school and, some trades are regulated, mine's not, but, we've had this, the stereotype of what a contractor is and what it means to be in the trades. And it's really damaged, the trades overall, because we're 25 years behind times. Like we have massive amount of information, but there's still this lack of wanting to put systems in place, wanting to give a new apprentice or a millennial a pathway to come through and see, like, hey, listen, where's our opportunities, right? Is the next 50 years of my life look like, just swinging this hammer and, having no direction and just, kind of doing my best and that's it? Or, and again, this is where the tradesman becomes the businessman, is, painting that pathway and being like, hey, this is where the business is going. This is what we do. This is how we do it. And, you can be here if you continue to work towards it. Right. And I guess with the millennial workforce, where we're seeing probably the biggest problems and the biggest shift is that those values have changed. Right.
Yeah.
So, a Gen Xer or a baby boomer, their values were, if you work really hard, you're going to get somewhere. Right. So they didn't really complain. They just kind of went forward with it. Millennials, on the other hand, are the polar opposite. They've seen their parents work hard, seen that it didn't really get them too far, and now they're wanting opportunity, right? So they expect opportunity, and I think that the market's struggling to compensate for this, right? So you hear like millennials don't want to work, they're this, they're that. That's not true. Labor shortage. We don't have less people on this planet. We don't have less people, less kids out there. We have more. The reality is that because tradesmen have been so stuck in their ways, and they haven't opened that door to the rest of the millennial group and made it a place where people would want to come and work, it shows now, right? That's why we're for every I think every one we get in, we're losing 10, right? So that,
Oh,
and it's
wow.
not for lack of money. It's not like they're getting paid more than they ever have.
Yeah.
It is a hard job, but at the end of the day, it's really the pathway, right? Like if you had to look at
Yeah.
the trades, tell me what my next 15 to 20 years is going to look like. Oh, I'm just going to swing this hammer, and or I'm just going to do this one. Like they don't explain like, hey, no, you can own a business, you can be,
Right.
established. We just don't paint those pictures. And the stereotype exists to the, you brought it up earlier, and that's a prime example. What
Yeah.
we're seeing is just it doesn't resonate with a millennial workforce, right?
And Nate, I'm going to say, can I give you my 2 cents on this one?
Oh, please. Yeah. Chime in.
So if you're listening in, you got to ask yourself this question, okay? When it comes to, Nate, your comment about, man, isn't it's more work than what it's worth, okay? If that's the case, you're going about systemizing the wrong way, okay? So there's really three core places that you're going to be at listening in on this podcast. You're going to be, the guy on the hammer. You're going to be the guy wearing all these different hats. You're going to be, putting in lots of different hours. You're going to be like an undiagnosed version of schizophrenia. Oh, now I'm the salesperson. Oh, now I'm the tradesperson. Shoot, now I got to go quote. Okay. You think about all the hats. Let's just say that there's minimum 10 hats. Okay. We don't need to go through all of them, but you can imagine what some of them are, from marketing to sales to you name it, right? Being a project manager, foreman, being the tech, there's 5 right there. Okay. So imagine you got these 10 hats. Well, for you to properly communicate, to get somebody else to do that, you're either going to have to do it, version 1.0 is you.
Mm-hmm.
That means it depends on you. That means it needs to be communicated by you. That means that it needs to be monitored by you, right? And on and on and on, it comes back to you. You go away for a week's vacation, you come back, you got 3 weeks of fires to put out, because there's no way for you to properly communicate to 10 hats, let alone 5 hats, what needs to happen on a daily basis. One thing that people don't understand in the trades is that there's a lot going on for somebody to put even trim on the wall, to somebody to hook up, a power system, a distribution system on the electrical side, to putting in a roof. There is a lot of moving parts. And if it is version 1.0 in your business, whereby it comes back to you to make sure all that stuff gets done, things are going to get missed. Things are going to get dropped. Okay. Let alone whether you're there or not. Okay. Mm-hmm. Version 2.0, okay, is you go and you create these systems so that you can say, hey, John, Sarah, follow these steps, follow this checklist. Instead of me spending 2 hours explaining it to you every time and you trying to memorize, let alone, try to memorize, Nate, I send you to the grocery store and I go, Nate, I'm going to give you 10 things. You can't write it down, right? Yeah. And then you got to go to the grocery store in 3 days from now and trying to remember those. You're going to forget stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. In the trades, that's times 10,000. Okay. Yeah. There's tons of different steps. So version 2.0, you create the systems. Okay. You give it to other people. They follow the systems. And when an error happens, instead of guessing where the error happened, you know exactly where the error happened. Okay. So that's version 2.0. Version 3.0 is, and this is where we're at Profit for Contractors, is you get given the system. Mm-hmm. You take the system. You don't need to create the system. And you take that into your business. It's proven. It works for other people. And guess what you get to do? You get to leapfrog months, if not years, of trying to figure it out. But guess what? You still, you get this system that your team can follow. So you're either going to have to, stay at version 1.0 and be a prisoner to your business, or you're going to have to create the systems yourself, or you're going to have to get the systems from someone, right? Like ourselves.
Yeah,
right.
That's great. It's funny, this labor shortage we mentioned, and just this demand for tradesmen. We hear about it, and the sales or the approach I hear in media often is to try to recruit new tradesmen is something like, oh, if you're a certified welder, you could make $100 an hour, and the conversation kind of stops there. And Jay, you hinted at this.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of chat or like taking the next step that's like, and after you work for a couple of years, you could start a
Right.
business and make whatever, $1 million or something like that.
Yep.
Why is that? Why does that
See,
get like left out of the conversation to the trades? It's like you can be a tradesman, but they never or very rarely finish that with like you can own 50 trucks and a whole
yeah.
crew or
What
a
a
lot of crews.
what a great question. I see this firsthand. I mean, I experienced it in my own business, and again, I was kind of explaining to you about how there's been this massive change over. So as baby boomers and millennial or Gen Xers are kind of weeding themselves out of the market, their value system was one way. Now companies and most contractors, they never developed or advanced. The same way they did it 25 years ago is the same way they do it today. All
That's
right.
it right there.
So
Yep.
so what I'm saying here is that the millennial workforce, they have different expectations, different requirements. They have different values. One of the big things we're seeing is, if I tried to train or if I put someone like a Gen Xer through our onboarding process, right, which is unheard of in the trade. Like, who's onboarding? What is onboarding? That's where you actually train them all of your systems up front, like just like like an assembly line. When I tried to do that with a Gen Xer, I got this kind of kickback. It was like, I'm not doing that. I know how to do my job. Thanks. I'm like, no, you're not getting it. I want you to be really happy here, and I want you to see all the opportunities that there is. Let's plan out your next year, 2 years, 3 year path, because everyone's path could be different. Here's some guys that just want to go to work. They want to come home, make good money, and that's it. There's other people out there, again, and in the millennial group that come through and they want to own the business. Okay. So what's wrong with, and this is where we see the big difference and the big shift happening is, until we start to say, hey, yes, you could be the owner. And yes, this is the real pathway, because I mean, ultimately, I got to a place in my business that I'd love to see other people take. I'm not going to block that off or just try and put someone in a corner, because it doesn't work. If you don't have the opportunity out front, if you're not coaching your millennials, if you're not including technology, because that was always something, again, in construction especially, we're 25 years behind any other industry. Millennials, it's not a novelty anymore. It's not a novelty to be able to communicate well and to have access to technology. It's a requirement. So you have all this generation of, most of them are, probably 5 employees at max. Okay. And the unfortunate side of it is that they haven't utilized the opportunities that have come about in even the last 2 years, 5 years. And they're slow to adapt to new technology. They're slow to adapt to changes. They do it their way. They're not passing on their knowledge. They're not, promoting the trade. They're not, so we have the majority of those is 90% of the market, that hold that spot. So until that starts to shift, we're going to continue to have labor shortage problems. We don't, and again, like I said, we're not really looking at a labor shortage problem. We have a social problem that's preventing us from truly, being being where we need to be as a construction trade. And it sucks for someone like me. I mean, I'm still younger, and this trade has given me amazing opportunities and amazing things have come, but I had to go out and find those. And we're just not seeing that with the millennial group. They expect it to come to them and be handed to them. And we now as a business have had to adapt and learn how to communicate with them. Learn, again, there is a process for getting someone, a millennial, to come in and train them, get them on board with you, get them seeing the vision you're giving them, getting them to buy in on that. And the good news is, and that I guess the light at the end of the tunnel is, they're keeping up with the same. They're actually more capable than the last generation, and everyone, contrary to what the stereotypes are right now. If you ask any trade guy, he's going to tell you 2 things, and I hear it day in and day out. I can't find good guys, and millennials don't want to work. Right? Okay, you're right. Yeah. So, but maybe they just don't want to work for you. And there's a reason why, right? And that it's true, right? Like, again, the work's getting done. Millennials are doing it. They're just not working for you. And it's because
it's funny. You think about this. You think about this, Nate. Think about how much technology is in this thing that I have in my hand.
Yeah.
This phone, right? And these millennials are coming in with it in their hand. They want to use the technology. They want to bring technology, actually, to your business, right? They want that technology.
They won't.
You cannot. I'm going to tell you right now, anybody listening in, you cannot compete against doing it the old way out of your head versus technology. There is no way in hell. So, you got these millennials, they're knocking on your door. Look at it as an opportunity for you to evolve. Jay used the word adapt.
Adapt or die.
It's right. If you adapt to this, you think about how many of your competitors are out there, contractors out there. If you adapt, out of 20, you got 20, 30 competitors in your area, there's probably only 2, maximum 3 that are really looking at millennials going, what a great opportunity. Most of them are pushing them away, right?
Yeah.
And there's a big problem with that is that within 5 years, guess what you're going to have to do nonstop. Like there will be nobody else other than millennials. So you best adapt now because it's coming and we're feeling it. Like I'm a roofer. So, we're like mold and mildew. I don't think there's too many people below us. We experience labor impact much sooner than other trades, much sooner than the plumbers, much sooner than the electricians. We've been seeing it for the last 3-4 years. And I mean, we have close to 30 employees, 10 subcontractors. Like we need a lot of workforce to get done our work. And again, we've seen this starting to occur. And it's forced us to really start to adapt. But the other trades are just now starting to get it, like how impactful this will be, right? Like we've got, a whole missing thing. And if somebody doesn't do something soon, and we talked about technology, you have to meet millennials where they're at. Okay.
Yeah.
If you're not thinking like I'm going to meet them where they're at, or I'm going to track them to my space that is virtual. We're not going to find them on job boards. We're not going to find them, they're not going to come to you from a resume or an ad you put out. Like that's not happening. You have to showcase your business and what you have to offer, and you'll start attracting them. And that's doing it through social media. That's bringing it to, stand outside and look different than everybody else, right?
It's funny how you don't have to twist a contractor's arm to explain how like a tool could make their life easier. Like it visualize heavy equipment or something. They can like see it with their own eyes like, oh, that'd be amazing. It's, $200,000. So I don't know if it's worth it, but that would really help me. And some of these, I'll say like software tools, for example, Jobber's one of our, we're going to be running some ads for Jobber. I'm really excited about it. And I think I saw, Andrew, that you had spoke at one of their things. So I'm guessing you're familiar with them.
Absolutely. Yeah,
but the point is you can utilize tools and maybe people don't take them as seriously because it's like, oh, it's, $50 a month or whatever it is. But a contractor should look at a lot of these things as a tool and then use that like paradigm to be like, oh, tools make my life easier. Yes,
Right.
it takes a minute. It takes a minute to like understand how to use a tool. True. It's worth it because after I know how to use it, but somehow there's like, when it comes on your phone, it just doesn't, it's not quite as persuasive to the old school somehow.
Right. And that's, again, for me, I'm cleaning up as a result of it. So, I mean, our hiring process, our onboarding process, even the way we're engaging, I processed between 200 and 300 applications in the last 90 days. All right.
Wow.
Out of that, I hired 3. Now, mind you, very niche, like top of the top, best of the best.
Sure.
But I did that in an automated way. Like we basically, again, when we got to those interviews, we vetted through our hiring process. So that gives you an idea of just how much effort and energy has to go into it. Now, if we tried to do that the manual old school way, first of all, we would have hired, the first, scumbag that came by, or the guy that's not qualified, or, the people we can, basically just have a body there for. Or again, you can autopilot a lot of this. You can, help use technology to do the heavy lifting. And the other thing, which is again, this is where our opportunity has been and will continue to be, is, if we counted the number of emails, texts, follow-ups, all the other stuff that we do to try and get people to interview, all right, 300 to 400 texts and emails get sent a day. Wow. That's insane. And we're hiring 3 people. And again, yes, I could lower the bar a bit and maybe hire 20, but at the end of the day, you look at my nearest competitor who's not a competitor. I'm totally capable of going and taking all of his resources, and eventually it'll happen, right? Because there's just no way he can manually keep up with me, and he's not willing to learn. So,
Huh.
all right, now you're going to learn the hard way is that you're going to die, right? Like there are companies that have, wait lists. There are companies, despite all the labor shortage and all this other propaganda that seems to be floating around, we're not seeing it. That's for sure. I mean,
Well, and Jay, just to be clear, Jay's talking about his own business. He's a big part of Prof for Contractors. We're talking like a lot of our clients
yeah,
have
same
got
thing.
waiting lists. And they have waiting lists because they've adapted. They've got waiting lists because they've become the prize. They
You
have
mean for
waiting lists
employees, for people who want to
for
work there?
Yeah.
employees, yes, for tradespeople. Like literally, hey,
Wow.
when a spot opens up,
Mhm.
please keep me in mind, right? Because they're at the right places. They're forward facing to those millennials and all the next generations, right? You know,
Huh.
how many times I come across a contractor and they go, "Freaking social media is such bullshit. I'm not going on that," and I'm like, "You're
Okay.
what?" I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not going on that. I'm like, okay, well, you better pray to God that the competition is not going to be applying our systems here because
Yeah.
they're going to dominate because they're going to have the right reviews. They're going to be, having a barbecue at the back of the truck, having sausages at 12 o'clock, and the owner's like, bringing in the food, and people are like, wow, what a great environment. Like that's it's a prerequisite now, but still, the majority of contractors out there, A, they don't know where to start, right?
Yeah.
B, they're not willing to. They're still stuck in this. I'm going to do it my way,
Right.
the old way, and that's not going to fly.
Yeah,
It's
it's a
just not going to fly.
it's a
So
total paradigm.
do contractors work with you guys remotely? I know you have classroom settings as well, but is some of this done just like we're in Oregon, quite a ways
Yeah.
from you folks. So how do people? What are the
A
ways that?
hundred,
What
a
are the different
hundred
ways that
percent
work with you?
remote.
Oh, okay.
We do our workshops, like live workshops and things of that nature. But
Yeah.
again, we're leveraging technology. We don't want to make give an excuse on our end or on their end to go, oh, there's a snowstorm, I can't make it. Don't worry, dude. You don't need to worry about snowstorms. Right
Yeah.
from your office. Oh, you want to be at your cottage and do this? Really?
Yeah.
And also from the perspective of running their own business, this COVID thing, right? This whole COVID situation, again, either you've evolved and been somewhat forced to use technology, or
Yeah.
you're gonna you're in the midst of dying, right, or fading away, right? So so we mainly do remote. So we got people from all over North America, all different time zones. They can remotely tap into any of the training at any time, similar to like this podcast, right? People can go and listen to this podcast, pause it, rewind it, listen to it again, share it with their team. I mean, that's so leverageable, right?
Mhm.
And
So
one thing that we'd have to say, and what I've personally been coached by lots of coaching companies. Started off actually with Andrew coaching me. I think that the big change with the method that he's using is it's not theoretical. All right. So the theory of how you should do this and this and that, we all got information. There's so much information out there. I mean,
Mhm.
people can drown in it. I think the biggest difference is what we coach, and when we're coaching mindset first. So get your head in the right place, and then not forcing you to creatively come up with the systems and process. No, it's all the mindset of using them. All right, they're built. Just follow the steps and make again, once you start to see results, it is a mindset shift. But if we don't deal with the mindset first, and again, all of these things, these limiting beliefs, I can't find good guys, I can't find millennials don't want to work. You're putting it out to the universe, and you're going to get that, right? You're going to
Yeah.
find that. So it is a little different, but
Yeah. So about social media, we obviously got involved with social media and then like went just crazy, and that's not necessarily what you're recommending people do, but
mm-mm.
in social media can take up time. It is kind of a scary thing because you're showing your work and guys can be a little, I don't know. In what way do you recommend contractors get involved in social media, and maybe even speak to someone who's just an employee right now? Maybe they
Yeah.
know like maybe it's one of your roofers, Jay, and he knows like, hey, in 5 years, I'm gonna like buy my own truck and do my
Yeah.
own deal here. So
Well,
what should people be doing? Forward thinking with social media in that
you,
way.
right. So what you got to remember is social media is meant to tell your story, right? So before all of that, before we talk about social media, before we get to that part of it, if you don't have a great environment that you're proud of, and you couldn't imagine yourself working, and this is where I think, a lot of contractors are missing the line. Go back in when you were an installer. Why did you quit the company you were at? How did they make you feel? What did they not forget to do? How did so think about that the same way. So before we can ever give you, and really the social media is the last part of the puzzle. I know how to turn funnels on. Marketing's not a new thing. It's never been easier any point in history to get out there. All right. What's different though is we have to look at it holistically. We have to say, hey, you know what? We're gonna create a new way to onboard. We're gonna take care of our staff first. We're gonna talk about where the journey has to be. And for me, it was getting used to saying, hey, these guys are going to be my competitors one day, and I'm okay with that. I'm actually going to train them, the best that I can, because for me it was only one thing worse than a guy leaving you that you trained, and that's a guy that was never trained at all staying, right? So again, you want to really think about that and imagine, like, don't put any restrictions, have that abundance mindset, and you're going to see a huge difference. People start to own and really take pride in what they're doing, and you start to create this culture. When you can start to do that, telling your story about that culture is the easy part, and people want to look behind this, behind the scenes. If a new millennial is looking into a job now, do you not think they should look at social media? Do you not think that they go that route? Do you not think maybe they're there? Even guys that you want to be in front of, which you've got to realize is that most of my guys that we hire already had jobs. It took months of continuously being in front of them and branding to them and explaining my story, and they follow us, right? If you're not doing that, you're not talking about all the great stuff that you're doing, and you're not thinking about that. It's just like if you didn't market or advertise for business. It's the exact same principle, right? You got to do the same, but from a business culture perspective. You have to mean it, right? Because people, if you come in and your job ad promises the world, and they get there and it's not, they're gone, right? Especially, again, somebody that's just made a change, and it's just starting to understand those kind of things and really think about that, that pathway and that journey, and actually caring about your staff. Like, if you truly do care, that's going to show through. All right. It's just doing that consistently, just like you care for your clients. We often talk about, we don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. Same thing for your guys. You are doing the same thing. All right. If you promise all the world and you deliver shit, you're going to get that back in return.
And the sad part is that you can have the greatest heart. Okay. I think most contractors out there really want to have a great environment. Okay. They truly do care about their employees. Right? They want them to succeed. They want them to hopefully have their dreams fulfilled by working, for them. Right? Buying a house, getting married, whatever those things going on vacations and trips and things of this nature. The catch to this is that will only take you so far. They will still can believe that you care about them, but if you're not doing something that's going to meet their needs, then they're going to go someplace else, and when it comes to, you talked about people that, work for a contractor, then they go start their own thing. Well, I just want to quickly address that. I think one of the mindsets you want to consider as an owner of a contracting company right now is there is the entrepreneur out there, but there's also the entrepreneur. And an entrepreneur is basically somebody that's working for you that feels like they've got a piece in this business, that they're like, I don't need to go start my own thing. I've already got a piece of this. And that could be through profit sharing. That could be through lots of other different ways. But again, it comes back to what Jay was saying. One of the very first things is the mindset, right? Like, somebody might be listening to this going, man, I never thought of it that way. Well, the minute that you think of it and you have this paradigm shift is the minute that you have the ability to make change. but you can't just be going about it the same way that you've been going about it. That's like, they say that all the time, right? The undiagnosed
Yeah.
version of, craziness, right? Is trying to
Right.
do the same thing over and over and expect a different result, right?
It's so hard to do that because you have to admit, I'm thinking my own life and all the businesses I've been involved with. I've never been able to do good systems, but anyways, it's hard because you have to kind of admit that you're terrible at this
That's
aspect of business. And for tradesmen, their reputation, how well they do the work, is very closely correlated to their business. So they think, well, if I'm not a good businessman, maybe I'm building, bad houses. Obviously, that's not the same thing, but basically, you got to kind of admit it first.
right. We see
That's
that
the
all
hardest
the
part, by the way, Nate.
Yeah,
yeah, we see it all the
exactly.
time.
That's the
And
hardest part. It's
how
pride,
many
right?
Yeah,
Pride
pride.
gets in the way.
That's it. That's it.
we one of the the coolest things that I think we've been able to do here at Profit for Contractors is take that older trades guy, give him enough that his business is securing his future, really. All right.
Mhm.
And he's able to spend more of his time doing what he loves. And for
Yeah.
some, you're absolutely right. They love being on the tools. They love, like, I have clients that have told us that, like, I want to, I just want to do this. Okay, great.
Mhm.
But there's responsibilities that come with a business. And that's the kind of thing that kind of drags them down. And when we start talking about all this more and more and more stuff you've got to do, it creates this, this resistance, right? And they just
Yeah.
want to go to work. They want it simple. But you can still have that. All right. You don't have to put all the thought into, how to create the system. Like, don't reinvent the wheel. Don't
Yeah.
like, it's about picking your spot. Like, listen, here's some guys that are perfectly happy. They make $500,000 in revenue for the year. They take care of their families and they want to just keep it small. That's cool. Okay. But you still need these things. You still need to protect yourself. You still need to have, a plan for hiring. You still need to have all of these things no matter what. Right. And
Yeah.
again, at the end of the day, if contractors, when they came into the business, were given more of this, we'd have a
Yeah.
better definition of success. And we don't. And that's where the problem is that nobody is
Yeah.
giving out a definition of this is what success looks like. When we look at other industries, we look at, the software industry, we look at tech, we look at everything else. They've done that. They've created that pathway. They're not saying to their people, you can only work for us no, they know that doesn't work. Right.
Yeah.
What you have to do is create it in such a way that, people's, like Andrew is saying, people's needs are being met. And, we're working actively not to be like the last generation, because it's like trying to put a peg in a square hole. It's not going to work.
I got a question for your listeners to ask themselves. And the question is, how long can your business run without you? How long can it run without you? Is it a day? Is it a week? Is it a month? And think about, now that you've been asked that question, what have been the consequences of it not being able to run without you? Like losing clients, losing employees, losing, money. Maybe somebody is, almost going bankrupt, to, like, it's a invisible prison sentence. Like, you feel like you can never go away. You go on vacation and you're basically still on the phone, doing texts, things of that nature. So if you don't like the answer to that question, that, man, my business can't run without me for more than a week or a couple of weeks, there's a better pathway. Okay. There's a better pathway. You don't need to do all the heavy lifting yourself. Okay. You can use other people's systems. I mean, God, we're on, Zencaster right now. This is a software, like, Nate, you didn't create it. I didn't create
Yeah.
it, but we're using it and we're leveraging it. And
Yeah.
there's all these benefits that come with it. That's the same thing with, getting control of your business, right? Is you've got to start putting on what we call the champion CEO hat. You have to be a champion CEO. We all know what a champion in our own definition of what that is. It's really feeling great. It's being in control. It's winning, right? And being a CEO, people think that when I say that, immediately you'll think of business. But I'm not just referring to business. I'm talking about being a champion CEO of your life. I'm talking about, being able to be in control of going where you want to go, when you want to go, in the way that you want to do it. And the only way for you to really, begin that process is to start thinking like a champion CEO, right?
Yeah, there's a
Well,
lot of
you're
stress too. That whole like all the downsides, the stress, and you mentioned it, Andrew, at the beginning with your business. When you had that realization. But man, there's so much stress. I feel it now with the business we're in of just when you have everything on your shoulders,
mm,
separate from just being busy and no time for vacations, but it's just like this mantle that is
yeah.
really heavy and intense, and it's got to feel good. I'm sure you guys have got some fun stories of folks who've been able to take that mantle off to some extent and lighten their load. And okay, so maybe the last question here. I've got a friend, in particular, who's talked about selling his business for a long time, and he's a contractor, and he always kind of stalls out. I'm always like, "You still doing that?" He's like, "I don't know." I think he doesn't know because it's such a fuzzy thing. Like, how do you even do that? What's it even worth? How? So, could you talk about that whole process? You've been through
Great
it,
question.
Andrew, so you kind of know. But it's not something you do snap of the fingers. I'm guessing you can prepare for it. What? How does that work?
Do you want me to answer this one?
Yeah,
We
both
got
of
a
Yeah,
you.
pretty
for
good
sure.
grip on it. So
Yeah, go for it.
I've toyed with that as well. I've been given some offers for our business. And what I've discovered, that businesses, first of all, construction companies in general don't get bought. All right. There's a reason for it. Unless you have a reoccurring revenue, something that, on paper, you've got monthly reoccurring revenues, most companies don't get bought out. A lot of companies now, you'll see, landscape companies, plumbing service companies, they're getting bought up by venture capital really, quite frequently because they're buying their customer base. The only time that a company gets bought, truly, is when they come in and you've got a decent CRM. So you've got a good customer base. The other time they'll buy you out, and this is what's happened to me, and what happened to Andrew, is when you can do something so efficiently that you're starting to nip at the toes of the bigger guys, or other competitors. They want your systems, they want your processes, they want to know. People can't, when you buy a construction company, you're not buying people, you're not buying the staff there, you're buying the system that operates that business and gives the predictable outcome, right? So again, people that will, there's two types of purchases that occur. One is you have another competitor, or you have somebody that's in the construction business, that will buy your business. And usually, what it involves is, the owner ends up just receiving the profits that company is going to make going forward, right? So they basically get retired out of it. That's the most common. 95% of purchases are done that way. You don't get cash up front. They're not giving you, you're buying equipment, whatever. The newer kind of thing that is starting to happen is companies are coming in and buying your process and system. They basically just tear everything else apart, and they just want your processes, your SOPs, stuff like that. I mean, they'll give you $200,000-$300,000 if you have a solid base there. And the last one, which has always been and will always be, is your MRR. So if you're really thinking about your business getting that monthly reoccurring revenue, if whatever it may be. So, I mean, in my business, we went heavy on the service. We wanted to sell service maintenance contracts. We wanted to have, a solid customer base where we could prove that we have, that reoccurring revenue. And that's where the gold is. That's where you're going to get 10x. Somebody's going to come in and buy you straight out because they can just take those contracts and move them right over into their system and have that work. So, there is a bit of a disillusion out there that, hey, I'm going to sell this great construction company. Well, I hate to tell you this, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but, you are nothing. All right. If you don't have systems and process, you're nothing but trucks and ladders at that point. That, you're buying equipment. You're not buying there. People don't care about your customer base because,
Well, I'll tell you one thing.
without you, the owner there, the company's worthless. Right.
Well, this is it. They're not like, back to your friend, they're not going to buy you.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Because they know that you have a certain gestation period. Sorry to say, right? Yeah. They're not going to buy you because if they go about doing that and they're a sucker for it, they better pray to God nothing happens to you. Right. Because now they've lost all the value. So, back to what Jay is saying. So if I'm your friend, one of the things that you want to ask yourself is like, which one of those do I want to be? The three that Jay laid out.
The franchise model. This is like basically, again, where it's at in terms of being purchased.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Right. And so, if he wants to maximize, I'm going to tell you right now that you will double, triple, if not more, quadruple the value of your business when you have it, when you're able to get that business to run without you. Okay. Because then the business is valuable, right? It's not, again, based upon the owner. So
how long does it take? How long should someone think if they're hearing this and being like, I got to do this? Do they need 5 years to make that
Everybody's
transition?
different.
Or okay.
Again, that's such a great great question, and I've actually wondered this myself. I'm like, all these, like, these aren't new things. They're not, like, in one way or another, they're just, it's not new stuff. It's all around. Like, we, like I said at the beginning, we have so much information. There's so many things. What needs to change before you start to realize this? It's the mindset, right? Like, I have 1,000 SOPs, like, full-fledged, like, exactly how to run your business, full franchise
Jay,
model.
explain what an SOP is. Somebody might not know.
Standard operating procedure. So it's just taking, what you do, breaking it down to somebody else could do the same steps, right? In essence. I could give those entirely to, let's say, your friend, and it wouldn't mean a damn thing. It wouldn't add any value. It would be nothing but paperweight. All right. Now you hand them off to somebody who's truly got that mindset correct and understands that they're not doing the work. They're actually building a team and building a business. All right. There's a big difference there. It's not about the work anymore. It's about, again, coaching a team. Then those are infinity, valuable. That saves all the time, all the decades. You want a business over 5 to 10 people? You know what? The wheels start popping off when you don't have these things. The forethought. And again, this takes time. Like, if you're to try and do it on your own, okay, and unless you're really, you're on the ball and you know how to do this stuff, it could take decades and decades, right? You probably never get it done. Where it starts to pick up steam is you start to get one thing, you get the next thing, and then you're in a community where everybody's, being able to contribute to that, and you're getting the reasoning and the process behind it. That's when, again, that could be a 3-year journey versus a 30-year journey, so it really is to the individual, because I'll be honest, we have clients in our program, and God bless their souls, but they'll never make it there. And that's okay. You know what I mean? We're only trying to stabilize what they're doing, and we're giving them back their freedom and their time by just adding a few things. There are other people that we have that they want the world. They want to run multiple locations. They want to be, the biggest, the baddest. And we, again, those are the people that excite, I'm truly excited to work with, because they get that. Like, you cannot do that on your own, and you need to, be able to, have this operate, and that's what it all comes down to. Right. So to answer your question, it's very variable. It's it's a lifetime commitment too. Right.
Yeah. There's the last one, which is people come in and they're like, you know what, I want to sell this business in 2 years.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so, so that's where we have to analyze and basically do an audit to go, okay, here's what you've got. Here's what's missing. And back to what Jay's saying, we might go, no, that's not realistic. It's going to take you 3 or 4 years. Or in some people, it's like, hey, that's realistic. You're missing these 5 or 10 different things, and we're, specifically those different things, and we're going to put those things into play, right? With things that are already working, right? So.
Yeah, and we definitely see the multiplier effect with that. So, I mean, once again, it's giving somebody their first victory or their first aha moment where they're like, and it starts off with something so like simple and silly, but then they start to see, and we see people really, explode, like, understanding it. And, we've had some exciting, growth from some clients, but then we've had others that are just totally satisfied with just 1 or 2 things. We fixed it. Yeah. I'm good. And they're raving fans.
Nate, I just got one last thing to say to your friend, which is this. If he could get the business to run without him so that he knows he's got predictable profitability, he basically has built what I call as a cash cow. Okay. Yeah. So if he was able to have this cash cow, okay, that is going to consistently provide money for him to do whatever the hell he wants to do with it. And I'm going to tell you right now, anybody listening in that's in the trades, you are in an amazing place in the sense of opportunity. There has been no greater place ever in the history where where there's way more demand than there is supply. Okay. And when you're in those situations, you can make a lot of money if you just put the right systems and structure in place.
And labor shortage is the biggest opportunity I've seen in the last decade. because
Yeah,
for
that's
some
amazing.
companies there's going to be no labor shortage at all. It's going to be the opposite, right? So it's how you win at that.
Well, I'm gonna see this friend. He's kind of he's in like the kitchen and bath kind of part of construction, and so I'm gonna see him in a month actually, and I'm anxious to hear the update on where he's at with this.
Hmm.
And maybe my last comment here is actually it's a silver lining. I think contractors generally they're good at understanding division of labor. In other words, people with certain skills can do jobs better than others, and so
Mhm.
it's logical for contractors to sub things out to people who can do it faster, better. And the same goes for coaching and consulting, because it's the same principle. Like there's a skill that I don't have that someone else has. It's much less expensive for me to buy it from them than
Right.
to reinvent the wheel myself. I think contractors have a more tangible understanding of this just by nature of the way the trades work.
Right.
A guy who's been doing something for decades it's faster, it's cheaper, and it's better than you could probably do it yourself, certainly
Hmm.
on the first try. And I would say the same thing goes for consulting and coaching. We've got people helping us, and in pretty much every case, it's money well spent. So maybe to wrap it up, give us all the rundown on I know you have a podcast that you guys put out as well, and lots of content, your website and your services. Where do people go?
Okay, Jay, do you want to speak to that, or you want me to?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, we have what's called the no bullshit podcast for contractors, and it really is about that. It's they can get a lot of insights from the podcast, because we really see that there's a lot of bullshit out there, where people aren't giving specific, tangible
Yeah.
strategies that people can take away. It's just a lot of fluff and a lot of, oh, you got to put structure in your business. Okay, what the hell's that mean, dude?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so so that's the no bullshit podcast. They can listen on that. It's on Spotify. We've got it actually set up so it's got the video as well. So I'm drawing out things, or having Jay on there and other guests as well. Then we have the Profitable Contractors Association. That's it's a free Facebook group that any contractor can join. I think we've got 12,000 or something members in there. It's growing quite rapidly, and
That's
it's all
great.
like-minded contractors where they're sharing similar challenges, similar issues, and things of that nature. And then there's the Champion CO community, which is the clients that we work with, who are serious about improving their business and serious about leapfrogging decades, the days, right, with these systems. And so, if anybody wants to reach out to us, they can. I'd say first step, listen to the podcast. Another step, go into the Facebook group and join that. Get a taste of what the community is all about. And if anybody wants to join or has interest in the Champion CO community, that's a great place for them just to post, asking for help, raising their hand.
Amazing.
That's about it.
Well, yeah, that's great. Thanks so much. It's amazing how much valuable information is out there. I've been enjoying your podcast this last week, and just for free. You don't have to invest $1 million to like
Right.
even just get the wheels turning, and it's a great place to start. And so keep up the good work. I love you guys are solving these problems. Like I said, my dad's a contractor. I've been around a zillion of them, and I know it can be a stressful industry. And so I love that there's people I don't know, making it easier and improving these problems that I think a lot of people experience. And it puts a smile on my face to think that there's people like overcoming and putting those years behind them, and making a better future of it.
Yeah,
Well, you know
absolutely.
what, Nate? There's a lot of Jay and I and a lot of our coaches come from the contracting world, so we can really relate to these contractors, right? And the reality is that we know so many contractors during our day that are really good people. Like, they really are great people. I love tradies because they're real, they're to
Yeah.
the point. Again, there's a lot of them are that we meet are the no bullshit, right?
Yeah.
They're like, hey man, I want help. Like, how can I get that? And we're just so passionate in any way that we can to help contractors, because we really believe they're great people. They're our number one priority, and we really know that we can help these people
And the
and have a
trades
better life.
overall.
Because yeah,
That's, I
exactly,
mean,
trades
that's
overall, because they deserve it, man. Like, these
Yeah.
are the tradespeople. My last little thing, Like they're some of the hardest working people out there. So they got no lack of effort. Okay. There's other places out there where there's a lack of effort, but I'll tell you what, in the trades, man, the trades people out there, contractors out there, there's no lack of effort. And when you can combine that with, things that are already working, it's a game changer.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right. Well, hey, thanks so much, Jay. It's been a pleasure. Andrew, both of you, keep up what you're doing. I just love it. We'll make all these links available in the description, in the show notes, and on our YouTube channel, and we'll link to everything we can find to get people pointed this direction if this is something that is sounds exciting to them. So keep it up, guys, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us, Nate. Really appreciate it.